Have you ever felt that feeling like you just can't stop yourself around your favorite snacks? You know you shouldn't, but you just keep going back for more. Trust me, I've been there. We all have those cravings. But when does it cross the line and become something more serious? Food addiction is a real thing, and it affects way more people than you might think. Stick around because today, we're gonna break down the signs, the symptoms, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it, right here on Knowledge Nest. Let's break down what food addiction really is. We're not just talking about liking your favorite treats a little too much. This is about your brain's reward system getting hijacked. You see, when we eat highly processed foods packed with sugar or fat, our brains release dopamine. That's the feel-good hormone, right? The problem is, just like with drugs or alcohol, over time, your brain starts needing more and more of that stimulation, more of that food, to get that same pleasure response. You build up a tolerance. This is where things can spiral, leading to cravings and a cycle of compulsive eating that's really hard to break free from. So how do you know if you've crossed that line? If you're struggling with food addiction, there are some telltale signs. Ever find yourself craving food, even when you know you're actually full? That's a big one. Or how about this, you plan on having just one cookie, a small treat, and suddenly the whole pack is gone. Sound familiar? Another sign is if you find yourself eating in secret. You're embarrassed about your eating habits, so you hide it. It's also important to think about why you're eating. Are you actually hungry, or are you turning to food to cope with stress, sadness, boredom? That's emotional eating, another common sign. And be aware of withdrawal symptoms. Do you get irritable, anxious, even fatigued when you try to avoid certain foods? That's your body talking. And finally, if you've tried to cut back, to break these patterns, but you always end up falling back into old habits, well, that's a classic sign of addiction. Let's face it, the modern food industry isn't really on our side when it comes to this. They've got it down to a science. These highly processed foods are designed to be hyper-palatable. What does that mean? It means they're engineered with the perfect combination of sugar, fat, and salt to make them basically irresistible. They trigger those reward centers in our brains, and we keep coming back for more. And here's the kicker: studies are actually showing that sugar itself can be even more addictive than some drugs. So if you're struggling with this, cut yourself some slack. It's not just a matter of willpower. Your brain is fighting an uphill battle. So how do we break free? How do we regain control? The first step is awareness. Start paying attention to your triggers. What sparks your cravings? Keep a food journal. Knowledge is power. Next up, and this is a big one, we've got to ditch the ultra-processed foods. I know, easier said than done, but focus on eating whole, unprocessed foods as much as possible. Real food. And it's not just what you eat, but how you eat. Slow down. Be present with your food. Practice mindful eating. Pay attention to your hunger signals. Are you actually hungry or just bored? And remember how we talked about emotional eating? Find healthier ways to manage stress. Exercise, meditation, journaling, even just calling a friend. These are all great alternatives to reaching for that bag of chips. And finally, don't be afraid to ask for help. Talk to a nutritionist, a therapist, or join a support group. You don't have to go through this alone. Outro: remember, food addiction is real. It's not a weakness, but you're not alone, and you don't have to live with it. The first step is understanding what you're up against and then taking action. Start by implementing those small changes we talked about today, one step at a time. You've got this. Food addiction is real, but you're not alone. If this video resonated with you, drop a heart in the comments, hit like, and subscribe to Knowledge Nest for more health insights.